What is the European answer for artificial intelligence, and what is the difference that Europe is doing? You should select a European cloud provider that is not having a headquarter in the United States or in China or in Russia. Bonsoir. So my name is Stefan Schäfer. I'm, as you heard, responsible for international product marketing at OVHcloud. You probably not necessarily have heard about OVHcloud. So I will explain it a little bit, and I use the topics AI and data sovereignty and sustainability, it's not mentioned in the title, as topics to explain to you what the difference is that OVHcloud is actually doing. Now, data sovereignty in AI. AI, you have probably heard 20 different speeches about AI already on CloudFest. So this is your 21st. And we will have a slightly different view on it because we will look at the key issues that are actually driving in the moment the discussion around sovereignty and also about regulation of sovereignty. I'll deep dive into that in a second. It's not too legal, so don't worry. You will be able to follow easily. And then afterwards, we will have a look at data sovereignty and on sustainability, because both are very important topics, and they come with artificial intelligence and the extensive usage of storage or GPU that is coming with AI applications. Now, let's have a look at where we stand with AI and regulations. So here's just a little bit of some newspaper quotes that are used, that I took out of some newspapers and some online news. So there is, for example, the AI Science and Society. That was the event that took place in Paris, and you probably heard about it. And there, at that conference, there were a lot of topics also going in the same direction about, okay, what is the European answer for artificial intelligence, and what is the difference that Europe is doing compared to American approach on AI and also on regulating AI. And we can see that here. There are, for example, the AI Act, and I'll have a look at the AI Act in a second, is actually into force already since last year in September. And that's the EU regulation that is trying to regulate some of the risks that are coming with AI. And I'll explain the risks a little bit and go into detail. There are also other governments. You can see the UK is dealing with it. There is Canada is looking at this situation. So there is a lot of concerns about the usage of AI and the misusage of AI, and how can we actually make sure that AI is used in a proper way, and that is also making sure that our human rights, our data protection rights, our privacy is actually taken into account. And that's actually a little bit what I will talk about. And this is, here you can see one of our best sales guys at OVHcloud, because we're a European cloud. And Donald Trump is creating a lot of noise, obviously. And I don't want to judge about it, but it's actually driving a lot of demand in Europe, and especially here in Germany, for maybe a European, not so much American solution in your cloud area. And you can see here Trump actually revoked already, that's from the 23rd of February, so 3 days after inauguration. He already scrapped all he created an executive order that is scrapping all AI regulations that have been taken and put into place by the government that was there before, obviously, Joe Biden. And the reasoning for that has been used to get rid of all these regulations in the US. It's basically here in the Forbes, if you go on the last paragraph, basically the logic that is behind that getting rid of regulations in AI in the US is that they say it's slowing down innovation by imposing compliance burdens and limiting data access. Well, that's exactly why it was created, to limit data access and making sure that the usage of the data is done in an acceptable and proper way. So that's the American way, and I just gave you a hint on AI Act. So the EU AI Act is actually an alternative approach, obviously the opposite of what the US government is doing right now. And you can see that the EU AI Act has been put into force in February just this year, just 1 month ago. And the European AI Act is managing the security and compliance risk on a technology frontier that we are all facing and that we can actually see every day. The EU AI Act has 4 levels of risks, and it's clustered in different risk levels. And it starts with the totally unacceptable risk. And I have to say, I can't read it from here. But it says, so it's the highest level of risk, and it's, for example, social scoring. So if you look at the Chinese approach of social scoring, that's something where the European Union says this is an application of artificial intelligence that is prohibited in the European Union. So if you are a software provider or whatever, you prepare apps or something like that, then you are not allowed to implement anything that's going into social scoring, because that is forbidden in the European Union. Not in the US, obviously, because all the regulations have been stopped. Then there are regulations that are coming with a high risk, and that's, for example, face recognition. So face recognition is something that can be misused heavily. And because of that, there is a special risk class for it in the EU regulation. And the regulation foresees that things that are dealing with, for example, face recognition are obliged to be hosted, for example, in the European Union. So not by an American cloud provider. So for some of these risk clusters, it is obligatory that you host them in Europe or in your country, even depending on the regulation in your country. And then we have the lower risk classes, which are then like, I don't know, data that is not so much specific or sensitive. If you look at, for example, in artificial intelligence, and we see a lot of artificial intelligence applications in healthcare, healthcare is dealing with a lot of very sensitive data. And if you do a training for healthcare applications, for example, cancer recognition, then you need endless data to analyze it, to create a pattern, and then to create a model that you can use in your deployment. So all this data is very, very sensitive, and that would be high risk according to the EU regulation. If you look at it, the situation today, then you probably see that a lot of people use developers for AI models. They use a public cloud solution. Why? Because it's consuming endless amount of storage space and also GPUs, and the cheapest way to do it is obviously in the public cloud. But sometimes we just forget about the risk that's coming with that. So we need to make sure that some of these data, some of these deployments, be it healthcare, be it something in the military area, are taken care of properly, and that's why we have this high risk and the unacceptable risk scenarios in the EU AI Act. Now, I just wanted to say America is not America. I put that here just so that you can see there is a Californian, a New York, and also a UK regulation, okay? So a UK and the EU are very close still. But there is also other states in the US that are dealing differently than the central government in Washington. I just wanted to say that. We don't need to go into that. But America is not America, so there are also discussions ongoing in America to keep a same level of regulation. Now, this regulation, what are the main concerns that are addressed and answered in the regulation, like an EU AI Act or the Californian one or the New York one? There are 4 things that I put here, and we go through it step by step. So the first one is safety. Okay, that's a very generic term, but I'll explain it in a second. Then ethics, because we have bias, and we prolong our bias that we bring with ourselves to an artificial intelligence system. Then data protection, obviously, and sustainability. I'll go through it step by step. Now, safety. Let's start with safety. You probably have seen the Pope, which is not the Pope, obviously. And so this is fake a fake picture, so it's created by artificial intelligence. And that's something that can be misused heavily, and we had just had, for example, elections in Germany, and there was a lot of misuse of created pictures, for example, that were creating some kind of a news that was not really existing, for example. China just this morning created a new rule that every picture that is used in China that is created by artificial intelligence needs to be clearly mentioned as created by artificial intelligence. And this is something where we probably will go to also if you look at the European regulation, because we need to have a clear understanding what is actually true and what's not true. So there are some facts in the world, and we need to make sure that everyone is able to understand them properly. This Pope, probably every one of you has seen it, and most of you will probably have seen that this Pope is not the Pope. The reason for that is because we all have our background knowledge. We know the Pope is 88, has a different size, so it's probably easy for us to recognize that's a fake picture. But if you have not so much background knowledge, then you might be falling into a trap and easily understand something wrongly as true, whereas it's actually created by artificial intelligence. And this is some of the things that we try to do with AI, with the AI Act, for example. There's also a new AI Safety Institute created that is going to develop rules and regulations that are explicitly addressing this risk that is coming with safety. In the top, you can see I have a little bars. And they say, okay, how much is this topic actually dealt with in regulation, and how much is it the topic dealt with in public debate? And this one is actually prominent in both. Is as well discussed in regulation and also in public debate, because about the Pope we started a lot of discussions whether that's actually allowed or not, or whether it should be mentioned that this is an artificial intelligence picture, yes or no. Okay, so we see this is safety. The next one is ethics. I pick out here this Amnesty International one over there. Amnesty International raised an alarm over AI-driven discrimination in a Danish welfare system. Now, so I mentioned it before, some of us, every one of us has kind of prejudices. We always have that. That's something we as a human being, we are able to overcome it, but we have it with us, and we know that artificial intelligence is reproducing cases and results that we did before as a human being. So if we have, if we bring bias into into the things that we create, like articles or I don't know, whatever judgments, then these biases are prolonged and executed again by artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is not itself capable of finding out that that's actually biased. And that might be a real problem. It might be impacting every one of us in the end, because if you try to hire someone, then you go on LinkedIn, then you create a job proposal, and the job proposal is probably created with the support of artificial intelligence, and then you might be applying for it, and LinkedIn is offering you also to write an application based on artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is applying to itself. And the next thing is that then artificial intelligence is pre-selecting the candidates. And this is done on rules that have been created based on former behavior. And that is a prolonging bias very often, and also then racism or kind of prejudices against LGBTQ or whatever in that direction. So this is something where we need to be very sensitive. And also here, the AI Act, that's why the AI Act created high-risk systems, because they need not only to be only hosted in Europe, but they also need to be having a clear documentation and bias audit regularly. This is also something where you can see here that the UNESCO is creating ethics of artificial intelligence. I need to speed up. So that's also answering the same discussion. The next one is data protection. This is something which is heavily discussed in the regulation, not so much in the public debate. But if you look here, Google hit a 270 million fine in France as authorities find news publishers' data was used for Gemini. So very often, because you need to train all your artificial intelligence systems, very often this training is done on data, maybe our data, and we are not aware of it at all. So that's also something that has happened in Brazil for Meta. And so there you need to be able to understand as the solution where your data is and under which authority your data is actually used and not used. And so the unauthorized use of data is something that needs to be prohibited. And there, the EU regulation is one solution of it, and we all know there is the GDPR, for example, that's dealing with the same reasoning. Sustainability. This is something where regulation is actually not so active, but sustainability talks about the energy use and the water use, for example, for artificial intelligence applications. And AI data centers, you can see that up there when there were these large fires in Los Angeles area, there is a lot of electricity and water used in the data centers of California, and that was not available for the firefighting in Los Angeles area. And that started a long discussion. And if you look at the Facebook data center that's going to be built in Amstelveen, it uses the same amount of electricity like the whole city of Amsterdam, just for a data center in the end. So sustainability is becoming more and more important. And because of that, now I'm coming to our sales pitch, obviously, we have a different answer and a situation where we need to look at European solutions for artificial intelligence implementation and usage, and these solutions need to be compliant with the EU AI Act. And B, we need to have a look at the sustainability and the carbon footprint that is coming with our artificial intelligence solutions. Now, data sovereignty. What do we actually understand under data sovereignty? In our world, we have a number of regulations for data sovereignty. And the US has one, of course, China has one, and Europe has also one. And we know that it's, for example, GDPR, and then we have the judgments about Schrems 1, Schrems 2, and so on, that go in through the same direction. And then, of course, the Cloud Act. Now, the Cloud Act actually is something that allows the NSA, for example, to access every data in a data center that is owned by a company whose headquarter is in the US. Now, you all know where the headquarter from Microsoft is, or Google, or AWS, so they are obviously in the US. It's not the fault of AWS, Microsoft, or Google, but the NSA is, of course, allowed, according to their own logic, to access your data that is hosted in the AWS data center in Frankfurt. Just an example. I can take whatever you want. I don't want to blame AWS here, but just that's a clear rule. And it's a rule where none of us has any, the people that are from the US probably have, but no one has a real influence on it. So if you want to have data sovereignty, our understanding of data sovereignty means that you're only underlying European rules and European regulations, including the EU AI Act, including GDPR. So we say data sovereignty at OVHcloud is you're immune against extraterritorial requests. We do not use your customer data, also not for training any AI model. Your choice, you select your data, your choice, and it stays with us. And we have the highest standards of data protection. I'm running out of time, so I jump a little bit. So this is just to show you that we have the highest standards of data protection. So these are all the regulations you have, like GDPR, SOC 1, 2, 3, ISO, and in Germany, the BSI C5. So if you want to have a AI solution and an AI hosting that is capable of supporting and ensuring the EU AI Act, you should select a European cloud provider that is not having a headquarters in the United States or in China or in Russia, because then you are sure that your data is only used at a place and in the area of law of European Union. That's why we promote data sovereignty, and that's why we, for example, were also founding member of Gaia X at that point in time. So data that stays your data. And I promised, I have 11 seconds and I try my very best, to talk about sustainability. So sustainability, just a few numbers and I click fast through it. The electricity that is used to execute an AI request, for example, the ChatGPT versus Google, that's the very most interesting one, and there are the sources. So a ChatGPT request is step by step, by the way, replacing Google research requests. So you can see that a lot of us are starting to not search via Google anymore. We just write a question into ChatGPT. That consumes 10 times the electricity than a normal Google search would do. And there are a lot of numbers here, and I don't have the time to go into it. But you can see that the electricity that is used for artificial intelligence is exponential compared to our old world, where we came from, and compared to, for example, a simple Google search. Now, the question is, if you need to have a look at your carbon footprint for your artificial intelligence application, you need to be sure that you have a data center provider or a hoster that is taking a good care of the carbon footprint. And that does not only mean that you say, okay, I take electricity from solar power. Okay, that's very good. That's already one step ahead. But you need to have a full-fledged end-to-end chain to make sure that during the whole chain, your carbon footprint is taken into account and is kept in the limits where it should be. So this is just a few numbers to explain to you why a good choice is a provider that is taking care of sustainability, such as OVHcloud, obviously. And the PUE here, that's the power usage effectiveness value, that is in the market average 1.56, and in our data centers, it's 1.26. And the water use, I don't go because I'm running out of time, but I will explain you why this is. Why is this actually our PUE lower than the rest of the world? And you can, if you walk around, you can see a number of software or not software, hardware providers that start with water cooling. And that is actually the starting point of OVH 20 years ago, sorry. We started with a patent on water cooling. So what we did is we understood that water has a better capability to take the heat than air. So everyone that was in school in a physics lesson might have learned that. So water has a better capability to take heat than air. If you look at your PC at home, you have a CPU or a GPU on there, and on there is a little fan. This fan is trying to get the heat out of it via air. And that consumes a lot of electricity because you need to have the fan run, etc. So what we did is we started to create a whole system of water cooling. So we have exchanged the fan with a water circuit. We have built the racks so that the water is brought in a closed loop through the whole data center. We have built our data centers because we couldn't use data centers from other people or co-location because we need water in our data center. And that is also not, so it's at the same point in time the reason for our sustainability and for our sovereignty, because we were obliged to create our data centers and our own servers, so that made us totally independent of any American or Chinese or whatever provider, because we needed to build our data centers all on our own. The German one, by the way, is in Limburg. And you can come there, and then if you come to the data center in Limburg, you will see one of the most silent data centers in the world, because there is no fan. It's just water that is running through all the racks and all the servers. And that's why we operate also our data centers on our own, and that makes us so independent that we are fulfilling all the highest standards of data sovereignty, because that's based on our water cooling patent that we created 20 years ago. And we opened it up to open source, by the way, just last year. Okay, and I think with that, I'm over time, it says 0, red 0, by the way. So with that, I think I'm done. Thank you very much.